let's go for the second row of speakers about great building initiatives in Europe. This time we will have Irena and Kateryna from Lithuania and Ukraine talking about education for peace, a school for refugee kids. So most welcome.
So I'd like to use this opportunity to thank Alla Schwetz for this presentation. I was deeply touched by it, although there was mostly information, but I just wanted to reassure you that Ukraine as a country and nation is going through a very interesting period when we're getting reconnected to our roots and many things we do not know about our history. And of course, we know about Prasvita, but having Alla, who is basically the best expert, the person who has been studying this movement very deep in Ukraine, is an honor and joy. And it may seem, since there are a lot of Ukrainians here, that the Ukrainian Bildung movement is kind of being born. But as Alla tells us, and as we can make a conclusion, that in reality it's a rebirth, it's not birth. So we very much appreciate this opportunity also to reconnect with our roots. Thank you, Alla. I'd like to start, and I will now share the screen. So I'd like to, well in advance, say that we've prepared a lot of visuals, and we do not know how much time shall we have for discussion, because there's really something very inspiring that we would like to share with you. And Lena, please, and other facilitators, Ines, please feel free to stop us, because there's so many wonderful things that we've prepared, and it might be supportive for us if you orient us what is more interesting for you to hear. So the first thing I'd like to mention here is that it can seem quite strange that given the circumstances Ukraine is now, that we're speaking about Bildung and enlightenment and education, and even with the news that we all received today about mobilization and Putin's plans and threats. But in reality, there's nothing strange in it. And I'd like to here quote Wilhelm von Humboldt, who is the Prussian philosopher, who mentioned that nothing promotes Bildung like war. War is where people are put to the test and their character shapes up. So speaking about education, I'd like to tell you a few figures. 285 schools were completely destroyed or suffered from air bombardments or artillery attacks. Russia says that it hits only military facilities. So now you will see some illustrations of this military facilities. These are the Ukrainian public schools. What is important to know in our context, in the context of our presentation? Ukrainian teachers did their best to continue working with children even during the hardest times in spring. And here you can see a Ukrainian teacher working with children in Kyiv metro. You can also imagine that part of the lessons are now conducted in the bomb shelters, because we have air alarms, air defense alarms a few times per day. But I want to reassure you that it's not a tragedy. Now it's perceived in a totally different manner. Everything depends on the attitude, and I just like to show you one one short video and convey the spirit. Yeah, I asked my son, who is 17 years old and who is now in Kiev, to make a picture from the bomb shelter during his school. And he refused because he doesn't like to make pictures. But anyway, you can see that people adopt to different circumstances and still can find joy and learning wherever they are. What I would like to mention also is that part of the children, of course, left Ukraine. For now, we have the following figures. 9 million crossed the border with the EU in general, 9 million people. 5 million came back, roughly. 4 million received the refugee status. And what we witnessed later, we can call the explosion of social trust. We really like this new term. And what we also can see is that the European countries, and in particular the European Commission, did its best to adopt as quick as possible to the new challenges. And even in June 2022, they issued a document called Supporting the Inclusion of Displaced Children from Ukraine in Education, Considerations, Key Principles and Practices for the School Year 2002-2003, and mentioned that successful and meaningful inclusion of displaced learners in education requires action to meet their academic, social and emotional needs. But at the same time, knowing that there are more than 500,000 children studying in the EU now, acknowledge that it's a huge challenge for the European system of education to include these children and to reassure their academic, social, and emotional needs. Why? Because most of them just do not want to go to the local school. They do not understand the language. They do not have enough support from the significant others, meaning the adults, teachers, tutors, psychologists. So the system could not adapt quickly to the needs of quite concrete, alive human beings. And we can see that most of them, even notwithstanding the fact that it's obligatory to go to school in the EU, if you're a refugee as well, they still stay home. Many of them do not even get registered in the official system, because after 2-3 days at school, it turns into a nightmare. And parents prefer to let them stay home, either not to study at all, or more often to study with the Ukrainian schools online. What we will be speaking about today is an alternative. I believe it's a true miracle that my dear friends implemented into life, into practice. And finishing my part, I'd just like to say that whatever you will be hearing now is not just a miracle from the perspective of academic, emotional, social, and support for the Ukrainian children, but also it's a miracle of what friendship can give birth to. And I'll pass the floor to Irena, and she will tell more.
We worked with Katya since 2016 in Ukraine. So when Ukrainians came to my country, I couldn't see refugees. I saw my friends. I saw great professionals, and this was very different, therefore, for myself. And a little bit about the beginning or the context before, because I was always asking what's wrong with me. And just the week before war started, I just defended my PhD thesis on community resilience to shock. And in summer 2021, I wrote a letter to a rich man claiming my dream to open rehabilitation center for children with psychological trauma. In 2022, the bus with Ukrainian families came to rehabilitation center that became a home for them. So I will just scroll different pictures and tell what happened. At the beginning of the war, I started to call all my friends, teachers, school principals to come here to Lithuania to start the center or hub because when we all are together, we can start working. And we opened online school, which at the first day of the school, 200 children from different shelters joined classes. Later, this first aid help turned to more systemic activities. And why school? Because the research on community resilience showed that resilient community is networked and creative, and school is at the heart of it. So, of course, Kate is part of the initiative bringing the whole school community. And this was magical time because human kindness and solidarity overcome all institutional, legal, regulatory, financial limitations. Things, solutions, money appear just in a glimpse of a thought. And of course, to bring the whole community is an exceptional case, and no one knew how to do this right. The mainstream refugee integration solution offered us by the institution was to split children and families and place them into different schools and homes. Such way was not acceptable. Community aimed to be preserved as a whole. So we opened Ukrainian school on the 4th day after arrival. And at the beginning, institutions claimed that by holding community together, we create conditions for self-isolation and ghettos. This is picture of rehabilitation center. The great scientist that inspired me, Yvonne Agazarian, who developed a theory of living human systems, say, living human systems survive, develop, and transform from simple to complex through the process of discriminating and integrating differences. So in our country, we started to raise questions. Where is the difference between assimilation and integration? How to host people who wish to go back home as soon as possible? How we can support preservation of cultural identity of Ukrainians while being open for integration? How to start multicultural dialogue and deep mutual appreciative acquaintanceship with the refugees? How our societies may evolve if we stop putting labels, refugees, displaced, immigrants, but welcome Ukrainians, Belarusians, Kurdish. And I saw my friends, professionals coming here, so we couldn't place them into refugee camps or shelters, and we dreamed to make homes for them. So we, during 3 weeks, with the help of volunteers and almost zero money, we transformed hospital into homes, the most welcoming and healing homes. So all building dormitories with the help of interior designers, self-organized teams, they created 4 communities. And now the school has for around 440 students of all grades. We had 2 iterations or 2 versions of the school. And now I'll tell a few words about the school. At the beginning, our school was following only Ukrainian curriculum, and we congratulated our first Ukrainian graduates. We were illegal school because to accreditate new other countries' curriculum takes long procedures. Hence, more and more Ukrainian children were joining, and the institution silently gave us permission to exist. Summer was the great time to explore different approaches of mutual integration as well through non-formal education activities. Also, with the multicultural team of teachers, we have Ukrainian, Kurdish, Belarusian teachers, Lithuanian teachers. We explored similarities and differences between Lithuanian and Ukrainian education systems. Now we are creating multicultural integrated curricular, which allows students to be assessed, examined by educational institutions of Lithuania and Ukraine. It is very important for Ukrainian children because education curricular does not limit their freedom to choose and to travel between two countries anytime, and Ukrainian teachers can be employed as teachers. Hence, the question is why still two countries? Why not the whole world is an open space to travel and to learn for Ukrainian children? So in order to attain this goal, we have to focus on English language skills for students and teachers. And here we ask international community for support because we need partnership. We need teachers who can teach our teachers and children. One of our teachers once asked, shall we treat Ukrainian children the same as all other children, or shall we treat them differently because they are experiencing or they experience trauma? The answer is yes and no. So the most primary aim at this school yet is healing, creating the safe space to face reality of the war, of separated families, of grief and disappointment with the world. Here, I have more questions than answers. If we focus on rehabilitation, can we postpone education? Can we study math and heal our pain simultaneously? What competences, emotional sensitivity, and tools shall our teachers have? How therapists can work without creating sense that someone is damaged, traumatized, and needs to be repaired, because being traumatized is traumatizing. We have many challenges in our school, but we don't have lack of teachers. Number of people who abandoned their school practice or professionals who worked in business left jobs to join our team. Yes, we have challenges with finances, but the main reason is why people join is they wish to create something meaningful in life. Volunteers creating homes for Ukrainians, thanks for making their life beautiful and rich. During these 6 months, I witnessed how we evolve as society, as humans. We evolved our self-trust and trust of institutions, business, and partners. This transformed from spontaneous help toward continuous impact. We as a society strengthened our national identity, discovered our inner richness, our sense of freedom. Compassion and kindness builds power. Full-hearted actions needs no management. It's self-organized. And schools are not service providers. Schools are the heart of resilient communities. Schools are the key to peaceful world. And we have our school in 3 locations because there is not enough space at one place, but we are very, very happy to see that school is growing and that international community is supporting us. So this is all from my side, just few. Also, we have beautiful project for adults in cultural exchange between Lithuanian and Ukrainian families, and one of the most beautiful. And this is how it changed through time, that from just ad hoc help, now we have a lot of partners, state support, and we see that we can make some change. And this is also still call for solidarity. Just thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Irena, for all the beautiful job that you and your team are doing in Lithuania, and just want to celebrate that it's a beautiful social experiment where we unite secondary education, primary education, secondary education, and adult education, given that we are already starting to work not only with teachers, but also with families and do the family camps for the Ukrainian and Lithuanian families, and going deeper into the Lithuanian culture through the beautiful Čiurlionis and other artists that help us deal with the emotional challenges that we're going through. I just want to appreciate that methodologically, it's a great learning and great experiment, and so there's so much creativity that is going on here. And I just want to highlight that the war in Ukraine is not necessarily just a tragedy. It is a tragedy, and we're experiencing it as tragedy, and at the same time it gives possibilities and creates chances to live different experiences and enrich our hearts and souls, and that's what we're trying to do here in Lithuania.
I just say this last sentence. When we asked a few days ago for this conference, we asked children why this school is important, what is important for them in this school, and the counter note is that they can be understood, that they can study in their language, and that they can have friends and teachers who understand them.
Yeah, and also just to one point to completely finish, one of the photos that you've seen during this quick slideshow was from Bucha, and that's where we've been working together with Irena when I invited her to take part in the project. And the name of the project was Social Integration through Development of Emotional Intelligence and Mediation Skills for educators in the Eastern Ukraine. And these were people from Konstantinivka, Kramatorsk, Izum, and other Kharkiv, Donetsk, Lugansk, and other regions of Ukraine who came to Kiev to learn from the international trainers. And later, these people became part of the Gravitas Schola. So basically being refugees, and many of them not knowing where to go, they resonated with the ideas that you've just heard and accepted the invitation, not knowing what to expect, but now they are part of the team. So we're celebrating friendship here.